All right, so we're going to continue on now into part four of this presentational series, an integrated and holistic approach to relieving lower back pain. Hi, my name is Brian Schwager. I'm the founder of Wellness Movement Services. Now, as we go into part four, now we get into the third major stressor that contributes to lower back pain, and that's nutritional stress. Now, I want to add something here. This is a very deep topic. There are so many variables when it comes to nutritional stress, and I'm going to focus mainly on digestive disorders because they have a direct correlation to the inner stabilizers of your spine, your inner core stabilizers for your spinal column. But there are other factors involved when it comes to food and nutrition. So let's start with just the basic concept of nutrition and looking at the human body. So let me start by saying this. When you have an injury, tissues, joints, ligaments, tendons, bones, etc., need repair. And the repair process takes raw materials. And the right raw materials will bring about the right repair. And when we talk about raw materials, we're talking about real food. Because there are a lot of non-foods, genetically modified foods, bioengineered foods that are not real, that the body cannot identify and can't use properly. But in a sense, with real food, organic, natural, and I say that word very carefully. What I mean by natural is it comes from the earth, not when it says in the ingredients, natural ingredients. That's for another topic for another day. So if you have organic meats, proteins, if you're a carnivore, if you like to do your fishes, hopefully they're wild caught. So these proteins are utilized by the body for repair. And then there are a host of other nutrients, right? But all these raw materials are needed to rebuild tissues and bones. And when I say tissues, that's I want to use a broad spectrum here because we're talking connective tissues and ligaments and tendons and muscles, nerves, everything. And again, this isn't going to be a talk about the specific nutrients that are needed for repair, but I think everybody should understand basically we need raw materials. So much like we need sleep, right? And when we don't get the right sleep and we're not in rhythm, right? We're not even in the repair process for a lot of people or psychological repair because we're not releasing the hormones on time. We are, for various reasons, we're in a sympathetic drive way late in the day. People have a hard time falling asleep and they take sleep aids and they use substances to fall asleep unnaturally. So they mitigate their repair process. In that process between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., you need the right raw materials. So now you get into the right sleep and your little repair cells are going to go to the work site. So let's use that as an analogy. And let's say all my little repair cells, they get to the work site, but there's no raw materials. So does that make sense? So let's say I tell my workers that are building a house for me, all you have to do is show up and I'll have all the materials there ready for you. Right? So I got to pay them to be there. Well, they show up, but there's no raw materials. Okay. Or they show up and there's cheap raw materials. You could still build a house, you can still build a body with cheap raw materials. But the duration of that repair and the sustainability of that repair is going to be weakened. All right, I get it. So something's better than nothing, right? Well, you tell that to my clients who are suffering greatly, like myself, because I went through low back pain and I mitigated and I patched it up and I did the best that I can. But until I made these changes, I got long-term repair. So what am I saying here? The right raw materials. So that when we get into our sleep cycle, we have what is necessary, even hormonally. If you're eating the wrong foods that are interrupting these hormone releases, endocrine disrupting foods, endocrine system, hormonal system, then that's still causing a challenge. But again, I don't want to go too deep down that rabbit hole, but I think I want everybody to understand when I sit with my clients and we're going to get into nutrition. Of course, I go pretty deep with them, but right off the bat, if they have an injury, I say, well, we got to repair you. Even if I work with somebody who doesn't have an injury, if I'm working with an athlete who's training hard, or a recreational athlete, or someone that's a fitness buff, and we're going to train them hard today. So I'm in there doing HIIT training, high intensity interval training, and then you need to eat within 30 to 40 minutes to replenish. You need to eat the right foods to get the right repair. You'll need to stay hydrated all day because that's part of your restoration process. And you're going to need to eat slowly and chew your food. We'll get into digestion here in a minute. Digestion starts pretty much in the mouth. If you're not chewing your food, that's the first disruption in digestion, which can interrupt your sleep-wake cycle. You want to have your last meal 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. Digestion is one of the largest energy-producing systems in the body. So if you're eating the wrong foods at the wrong time, you're already interrupting that sleep-wake cycle. And then you want to eat the right kind of food so that when you get into your repair cycle, you have the right repair nutrients there to do the job. What we're looking for is ideal. Now, I walk my clients slowly through that process because it is nutrition, I find, next to the emotional stress. When people ask me, remember on my rating scale, when people ask me about what are the highest ratings that I see, I usually say, or I usually see it in the emotional health category, like here is an 80, and here nutritional health is 200. That's why their physical rating is high, and that's why their biochemical rating is high. Because your nutritional health has everything to do with all of these systems. Remember, your body is integrated, multidimensional. All the body systems are interconnected. So you got back pain. That's why we're looking at these 4 stressors. And one affects the other. There's no way around that. None. So we need to bring this down if we want to bring your pain down. And then there are certain foods that are pro-inflammatory. Now you could pause the video here and take a good look at this list. This is the same list I give my clients. And after looking at their food diary, their food log, it's really, we have to start removing what no longer serves them. Some of these foods you'll be able to rotate back in. Some of these substances and foods I would eliminate altogether. Now, as far as meat, that'd be something you rotate off of until the pain comes down. What we're looking at here with this list, these are also foods that increase the acidic properties of your chemistry, which is also related to the inflammatory process. We need to get your body into an alkaline state, which is also going to help with repair, restoration, and rejuvenation. So basically, we're detoxifying the body, which is what I do for all my clients, whether they're in pain or not. Now, if they don't have pain and they come to me with other, challenges like chronic fatigue and, they're plateauing in their training, or they want to lose more body fat, or they just want to get healthier, increase performance, whatever it is other than pain, I always encourage them to start a purification process. And that's a step-by-step process. First, we stop putting in the foods that are creating the chaos, and then we can actually use certain supplements and regimens to help clean up the gut, the liver, the gallbladder, and the kidneys. I heard one physical therapist say once, if you want to get out of pain, get rid of grain. And I'm not talking paleo, I'm not talking totally grain-free, I'm talking you want to get out of pain? I've done this. I've done it on me. You want to get out of pain? We want to get rid of these foods. I did this with a client 6 months ago. Came to me, his pain levels were between 8 and 10. Took him off of sugar, took him off of inflammatory foods, cut way back on his coffee and changed it to organic, and put a buffer in there with a little bit of coconut oil. And his pain levels came down. And when he went back on these foods and the alcohol, the pain levels go up. There's other reasons why your pain levels go up, but that's biochemically, that's that reason. And this is tough. The two toughest areas to change is the mind. The mind is the weakest muscle in the body and the hardest thing to change. And nutrition, because people have an emotional attachment to food. We eat based on behaviors. We eat based on conditioning. So, raw materials. Now, if you want something that's more specific, that is be tailored for you. It's like I said, there's no one size fits all, but I know that if I had an audience of people and I was presenting this live, I'd say go off of sugar, take out the alcohol, take out the dairy, take out all the white flours, the breads, eliminate all grains if you can for a little while. Nightshade vegetables, and see how you feel after 7 to 14 days. And you got to give it time. So then you're going to ask, well, what can we eat? And this is a short list of what I give my clients. Now, again, when I work with somebody, I customize it. There are other factors involved with their gut. They may have leaky gut. They may have other things that I may have to reorganize foods. They may, like, I don't tolerate onions, so I couldn't do the onions, let's say, as an example. But this will give you an idea of the foods you can eat. Now, you'll notice the fruits. Now, those fruits are in the low glycemic index range, so they won't spike your blood sugar. We want to add fish because fish has omega-3. You need more omega-3s versus the omega-6s, which are found in all your starchy grains, your breads, your pastas, etc. So use this list and think of these foods like medicine. I just want to mention here the importance of water. Now, you don't want to drink water with your meal or any liquids because it dilutes your digestive enzymes. And you want to try to stop your water intake 30 minutes before. If you need to drink water during your meal, just sip it and wait 30 minutes afterwards. But in between, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. This hydration is very important for maintaining a healthy gut, playing a vital role in digestion, nutrient absorption, overall gut function. Water is a key component of saliva, which digestion starts in the mouth, helps to dissolve food particles, helps to prevent constipation, helps to maintain a balanced gut microbiome, and a host of other things that will benefit you, but make sure the water is clean, pure, and structured. Now, most importantly, regarding all of this up to this point, just allow yourself time. This didn't happen overnight, so you have to give it time. Give yourself time to adapt to these changes, these lifestyle changes. You got to give it time. Some people get a quick relief. They get quick relief. And some people it takes time because there's other mitigating factors going on here. All right. So raw materials. And then we get into digestion. Now, the National Institutes of Health, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services report that 60 to 70 million people are affected by digestive disorders. Yes. So that's 75% of my clientele. I'm closer to 80 now. And in some months it's 90. Okay. And what does this have to do with your spine? Well, it has everything to do with your spine. These digestive disorders create symptoms that may include bloating, diarrhea, gas, stomach pain, constipation, and stomach cramps, which can create lower back pain. This is because the nerves that go to the stomach, small and large intestines, originate in specific segments of the spine. As indicated in the image on the left, specifically the areas of the spine that are colored red, blue, and green. These areas indicate and show how the nerves go to the muscles and ligaments that stabilize the lower back. So there are nerves that come out of here. So we're going to go to this image. So again, we have our areas of the spine. So if you got just below your shoulder blades, down to your low back. Okay. When the bowel is stressed, so you can have gas, bloating, diarrhea, host of symptoms, right? The muscles that share the same nerve root will contract and cause pain. Any pain that lasts more than 48 hours begins to alter function and creates inhibition of the inner core spinal stabilization system, thus decreasing segmental spinal stability. Now, this is not talked about very much to the public. And my client said, hey, nobody's ever looked at and asked me about my digestion and taught me that there's a correlation, right? It alters function and creates inhibition. What's the word inhibit mean? To turn off. So when people say, well, why is my core not working after I test their inner core? And I'll say, well, there's number one, you're in pain. And number two, we have to look at why that pain's there. Well, my pain's there because I have a herniated disc or I have lower back pain or my hips are out of alignment. Yes. But I want to get to the how and the why. And then I need to teach them in layman's terms the how and why so that they're less likely to come back to me. See, we're not educating the public about segmental stability, about the inner versus the outer core, the viscera, and the altered function based on these nerve roots that get irritated and aggravated. So when we're in sympathetic drive, fight, flight, and freeze, all the blood rushes to your extremities. So there's nothing there, and your stomach will go into knots sometimes, and your heart rate will elevate, and your lungs will open up because you may have to run. You'll secrete epinephrine and norepinephrine. Glucose gets released. Digestion gets inhibited. All happening within seconds. And how often are we in sympathetic drive? And when I've counseled with people, coached people rather, and we look at their emotional health and what's going on in their life, and we look at life right now, people are living in sympathetic drive. So I teach them how to breathe, and when I do these other relaxation things, and then we use exercises to bring them back into or move them into a parasympathetic state, which is to rest and digest. But what are we talking about here? What does digestion have to do with my back pain? Well, now you just learned. Any pain that lasts more than 48 hours begins to alter function and create inhibition of the inner core spinal stabilization system, which I'll get into more detail in part 5 when I start discussing physical stress, which is the fourth stressor, common stressor to lower back pain. So we go back here and I ask my clients various questions. If you're working with me, then I'm asking a lot of questions having to do with digestion. Like one question I ask is, when's the last time you took any antibiotics? When's the last time you had an infection where the doctor put you on a 7 or 14-day supply? Are you currently taking ibuprofen over the counter? Are you taking any other pain medication? Are you taking medication for stress? All these things alter your gut. Do you drink alcohol? Do you currently have any ADHD or anxiety? Do you have excessive acne or psoriasis? Have you been diagnosed with a slow activating thyroid? How is your bowel movements? Are you constipated? Do you switch from constipation to diarrhea? Are you having one bowel movement a day? Are you having two or three like we're supposed to? Do you have any irritable bowel disorders? Do you have unusual fatigue? Have you been diagnosed with any kind of itis, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, arthritis, headaches, and any food sensitivities? So as I'm explaining here, this is a very holistic and integrated approach. I know it seems a little difficult, but you have to ask yourself, what has not worked up to this point, and how bad do you want to get out of pain? So I think here would be a good time to ask you, what is your dream? What is it? What is this pain preventing you from doing in your life? And that will be the anchor. That will hold you on your path towards getting out of pain because you have something to shoot for. There is a significant association of visceral organ involvement in participants with non-specific back pain. Remember, non-specific is you can't figure it out, idiopathic. The most common viscera involved in back pain was the stomach, followed by the small intestine, liver, colon, and kidneys. Which I might add, these systems need to be cleaned up. You can't just stop eating the food. That's part one. Then I got to go in there and clean up the mess. You can't put fresh carpeting down on top of old carpeting, right? So there's cleansing that needs to be done. There's repair that needs to be done. You just can't put new wood on top of old decrepit wood if you're rebuilding a deck. Some of that stuff has to be replaced, has to be cut out, replaced, and re-bolted in. Well, that's what I'm talking about here, is cleaning up these organs, which are part of the problem. So you stop eating the food, and that's good. And then we got to repair the damage, just like your low back pain. So you go to the chiropractor, the acupuncturist, the body worker, and that's all passive work. And then you come to me, and I got to do the active work. Then we have to actually exercise and turn on these muscles that support the spine, that support your hips, your shoulders, your neck. But my job is a lot harder because the minute you get into activity, that's usually what provocates pain. And then that's why I always ask my clients, how is your stress reduction going with your emotional health? How are we doing with your nutritional health, which will help your biochemical health, your sleep? Okay? What the diagram illustrates is that all these systems integrate into the enteric nervous system, So the enteric nervous system is a vast network of neurons embedded in the walls of the gastrointestinal tract, often referred to as the second brain or the brain in the gut. It controls digestion, including the release of enzymes, muscle contractions, and blood flow, and can function independently of the central nervous system. And the communication between them is bidirectional. In the context of the gut, when people experience, for example, abdominal bloating and they don't feel discomfort or pain in their abdominal wall, that's often because the enteric nervous system has gone into a state of something like amnesia. Sort of like when you go back to the image of your inner core. When the inner core gets turned off, you have sensory motor amnesia. Sensory, the sensory system, the ability to do what? Well, let's look that up. The sensory system is a part of the nervous system responsible for detecting, processing, and responding to stimuli from the environment. Sensory motor amnesia, a loss of awareness and control over muscle movements, often resulting from habitual patterns and a lack of movement. In this case, what we're talking about is pain, disruption. So the digestive system has been disrupted long enough that now we have sensory motor amnesia. And then we can't move right because when one set of muscles are shut down, so say for example your inner core isn't working, what will happen is that other muscles will be turned on temporarily to support the body's structure. So as an example, my clients say, well, my hips are really tight. And I say, well, your hip muscles are holding your pelvis in place to protect your back because your inner core isn't working. Your hamstrings might be doing the same thing. They're playing a dual purpose here. Hamstrings have a purpose, and that purpose is mainly to move the body. Yes, they help to stabilize the body, but that's not their primary function. But when the brain receives a message from the lower back saying that, hey, the inner core stabilizers are down at the beach and they're having a Mai Tai, we can't get a hold of them. They don't even have their cell phone with them. So the brain sends a message down to the hips, the upper middle of the back, maybe the hamstrings, and says, hey guys, I need for you to get tight so that you can support the spine until we get the inner core back off the beach. That makes sense? So all this have to do with inhibition, sensory motor amnesia. So there's organs that are, again, we looked at this diagram earlier up here. These organs are intimately related to these spinal columns, to these spinal segments. So much like the line that comes out of here, those are the nerves. See that? They come out, they traverse through the viscera and other tissues, and they lead inward to the organ itself. So here's your spinal column, and here's the piano keys. And then you see the colors associated with specific organs. So somebody comes in and has lower back pain, that's going to be stomach, small intestine, pancreas, liver, colon, kidney, prostate. Those are the organs that get affected. This is what's happening behind the scenes. The whole cause, well, I was picking up my child and I threw my back out, and, that whole story, this is what happened and this was the cause. And I'll say, well, that was the straw that hurt the camel's back. But your lower back has been weak and disrupted for years, but you mitigated around that. That's what the health history is for. The mysteries in the history. So I go back in time and I say, have you ever hurt your back before? And they said, well, no. I said, well, have you ever hurt your neck? And I say, well, yeah. Okay. Um, you've hurt your neck before, and your neck connects to your back. So we have this diagram. So the cervical spine communicates with the lumbar spine. So you see how it's a column, and when the top is out of alignment, the bottom will compensate to the best of its ability to try to keep your eyes level with the horizon so you can ambulate across the ground. The brain always has to feel like it's balanced. And if it means it has to raise one shoulder up and one hip up, it will do so in order to keep those eyes as level as possible. Because once the eyes get out of whack, then everything falls to hell, right? So anything above, anything below the first cervical vertebrae, which is C1, all these other vertebrae become a slave. All right. So I go back into history and I find out they had whiplash or they had a head injury. And we could talk about concussions and things like that, which isn't part of this discussion, but it has everything to do with this. Again, the reason I'm putting out this video is to show you there's an integrated reason why your low back pain is there. We just can't treat your back. Even if you come in and you don't have neck pain, but you reported having a neck injury early on, I'm looking at the length tension relationship of your cervical muscles. Is one side short and tight and the other side long and weak? Is one shoulder higher than the other? I need to restore that because if I don't, we'll get into this more in physical health, then we got a problem. But to answer that question, it could be in the history. Why is my back pain there? Well, again, in the health history, have you ever had a history of digestive disorders? Are you currently taking medication? And you'd be surprised. And a lot of times, if you work with me, I'm going to have you fill out a 7-day food diary in a sleep log. Nobody likes to fill those out. Why? Because let the truth be known, this is what I had to eat. And they say, well, I don't want to fill it out now. Let me change my diet and then fill it out. I go, no, I want to know what you're eating now. So you write down everything that passes your lip. If you have 5 cups of coffee, if you have McDonald's, if you go out to eat 3 nights a week, if you have fried food, if you had cake, everything. Because the more upfront you are with me, the more I can help you. I'm like a detective. I need evidence. If you want me to resolve this, if you want your pain resolved, you want to get to the cause of your pain. That's the first question I need to ask everybody. Do you want to get to the cause of your pain? Now, if you don't, then this method doesn't matter. Then you just keep treating the symptom, and that'll work for you temporarily. But I put this out because the people that I talk to are wanting to get to the reason why. So if we got to find out what you're eating and when you're eating, are you eating late at night? Are you skipping meals? And I'm not here to talk about fasting and intermittent fasting. There's a time and place for that, but you're in pain. So I got to be real careful of that. You may have blood sugar issues. You can't go doing intermittent fasting if you got blood sugar handling problems. That has to be done very carefully. You can't throw this stuff out at people. Yeah, maybe it works for 50% of the people or 40% of the people. Yeah. But what about the 50 or 60% that throws their body into sympathetic stress? You skip a meal, that might raise your sympathetic drive. It used to do that for me. I had to eat every 3 hours. Otherwise, I'd get jittery, irritable. And that raises my sympathetic stress. Well, now in my life, I can go 4 or 5 hours. The human body has over 75 trillion cells. Each cell is dependent on vital nutrients that come from organic, unadulterated food to facilitate optimal cellular function and repair. So again, you're building a house. and your house costs $250,000. Do you want the cheapest materials on the market? All right. In addition, the body is made up of 75% water. And on a molecular scale, it's even more. And it is vital for replenishing in the loss due to inflammation and damaged tissues. When you're inflamed and you have damage, you're using up more water, more than normal. You're under high stress, you're using up more water. I exercise. Do you think I use more water when I exercise or less? You're right, I use up more water. So on the days that I exercise, I may increase my water intake a little bit more. Drink up to half your body weight in ounces of purified reverse osmosis water, or I'm going to add something here, or distilled. It is critical to remember that it takes the right type of food to convert to usable fuel for the body. Just like fueling an engine in an automobile, you would not put diesel fuel in a gasoline engine and expect it to run optimally. The same holds true for fueling the human body. Decrease and/or eliminate processed foods, sugar, grains, alcohol, fried, and other denatured foods. These will create suboptimal conditions and increase stress within the body, which lead to mechanical dysfunction. Fuel the body with the right raw materials, and this will enhance the repair process needed to help your body recover from injury. I also want to add, in addition, eliminate and do not eat GMO and bioengineered food. Do not eat those foods. This is highly important. Now, I can go into a lot of detail on water and the food and proteins and not proteins and vegan versus vegetarian. This is not the nature of this presentation. I work with you privately, coach with you to holistic lifestyle coaching, yes. Then we go down the rabbit trail, the rabbit hole. Rabbit trail, the rabbit hole. Either one, right? What I'm here to show you is the visceral organ involvement with back pain, digestion, and the inhibition of your inner core. There's a direct correlation between the spinal column and those organs, that people have digestive issues, and these digestive issues are causing challenges to your spinal stabilization system, which will be a topic for the next part. Because then we talk about exercise, and then we'll talk about how movement is like medicine. But all my clients start with inner core work, passive work. And if you're coming to me in pain, the exercises are very passive. I don't need to exercise you to a point where it puts you into sympathetic drive. You're not ready for that yet. So the workout I did this morning, hey, I was in sympathetic drive. I was working out hard, working out to expire, to get out, to exercise outward. Working in means to replenish, restore, rejuvenate. So that's all part of my phase one. You got to earn your rite of passage to work out. If you jump the gun and the exercises are not set up according to your nervous system response, then it may help you mentally, makes you feel good. But 2, 6, 7, 12 hours later, you're back in pain. All right, so that'll close out part 4. And then coming up in part 4, but this is nutritional stress number 3. Then we go into physical stress, number 4. So I want to thank you again for allowing me to share the truth regarding why we have this pain, how do we properly relieve it or get out of it altogether. And then you'll understand that when it reoccurs, one of these stressors are overstimulated. I'm teaching you, I'm helping you to be empowered by how this body really works as an integrated system of systems, let alone that it's cybernetic and bioelectric and magnetic. See my other videos for that. If you have any questions, you leave it in the comment section or feel free to reach out and contact me. The contact information will follow this video. Bye for now.